Today we're looking at Psalm 131, which is only 3 verses. Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor mine eyes lofty, neither do I exercise myself in great matters, or in things too high for me. Surely I have behaved and quieted myself as a child that is weaned of his mother. My soul is even as a weaned child. Let Israel hope in the Lord for henceforth and evermore. Very simple. About not getting caught up in philosophy and high understandings and all these things that all cultures were doing. This was written pre-Greek philosophical viewpoints. This was before Plato and all of those guys. And yet still there were lofty thinkings going on and people really thinking highbrow stuff and coming along with philosophies and understandings and trying to, put man traditions and man logic onto Yahweh. And yet what happens is the believer says, I'm like a weaned child. Now this doesn't mean you're stupid. That doesn't mean you're gullible or naive. It just means that when you approach him, and Jesus even led to this, that you have to come like a little child. It doesn't mean you stay a little child, but you need to have the attitude of a child. So, and a child will learn more when they have that attitude. So anyway, 3 little verses, really nice, just about making sure you stay away from lofty thoughts that are too high and stick with Jehovah. Going back to the story of Absalom, and Absalom has died, and again the story goes back to Absalom. Absalom comes back to David, and Joab brings Absalom back. David accepts him back, and then he goes and creates a conspiracy against David and gets some people behind him and wants to go to Hebron and declare himself king and create a battle with David. And so David leaves Jerusalem and takes forces with him and families and their little ones and things. On the way, he is taken care of by people along the way. First, Ziba helps him out, although we find out he has an ulterior motive as they're leaving to give them some travel goods. When they get there, a guy named Shobi and Barzillai give them even more goods. They're given beds and they're given, vessels and things to hold things with, and you're going to be cooking and carrying water, and you're going to be living out here pretty much in this wilderness. They were in a place called Mahanaim, and that was over on the other side of Jordan, past Gilead, and they were out there. And Israel is coming. Absalom got all of Israel to come against David and his forces, and now there's going to be this conflict. And David wants to go into the battle, but Joab says, no, you're too valuable. You need to stay in Mahanaim, and you'll stay there, and we'll go to battle. He splits his forces up by three commanders, and the battle ensues. So what happens is, during the battle, Absalom gets caught in a bunch of trees. They fight in a wooded area, not in a plains. He gets caught in a tree. David had told the captains not to kill Absalom, and all the troops heard it. A young man sees Absalom caught in the trees by his hair. He's got pulled away from his horse, and so he's hanging there, maybe grabbing his hair, grabbing a tree limb, but he's stuck in a tree. Joab comes up and has some young men kill Absalom, and then they go and runners are sent, maybe daily runners, to the king. Joab sends a runner, and then later on, a friend who's friendly to David goes and tells David what's happening. Abishai gets there first, tells David that he doesn't know 100% what happened at the battle, which he did, but he was maybe cushioning the blow or something. Cushi gets there, the second runner, and tells him that Absalom's been killed. And we pick up that part where he's like, Absalom, oh Absalom, and my son, and this is what we picked up here. And he's weeping for his son, and Joab comes out to him, and Joab kind of gets on to him. There was victory this day, and now you're turning it into a day of mourning. The people that should be coming back with joy are not coming back as if they're ashamed of what happened. And the people are coming in stealthily back to the city, just like they left, instead of they should be coming back with joy. But the king has covered himself. He's inconsolable with Absalom, oh my son Absalom. Joab kind of gets on him here and says that you seem like you've loved your enemies and hate your friends, that you're so sad for the death of this person, and yet maybe you would have that all of us had died instead of Absalom. He's really, to me, he's being very mean. Joab saw Absalom as an enemy. Remember, there was contention between them. Absalom, remember earlier, Absalom wanted to talk to David and wanted David to bring him in, Joab to bring him in, but Joab was taking his time, so he sets Joab's field on fire to get his attention, which did. There's always been tension between these. Joab saw Absalom as an enemy. David saw Absalom as a son. So here, and again, Joab is doing this. Get up and speak comfortably to your servants, or I swear by Yahweh that if you don't come forth, there will not tarry any of these night, and it will be worse for thee than all the evil that befell thee of thy youth until now. He's threatening him. He says, if you don't get up and rally these troops because of the victory, you're going to lose everybody. Now, whether he would have or not, you know, I tend to think that maybe people would have been a little more sanguine about a man who's lost his son. But Joab just saw that he killed an enemy. We're going to see later on, and I'm trying not to give some foreshadowing, but David, when he dies, tells Solomon to take care of the things that Joab has done. That he hasn't moved on Joab killing Abner. He hasn't moved on what Joab has done. We have later on, Joab kills a man named Amasa. The things that Joab has done. And it's almost like David keeps Joab around, and he hasn't moved on Joab's sins yet. And God does that with us. He's not going to move on the sins of some of the evil people around us yet. One day he will. Vengeance will come. And so David is later on going to have Solomon take care of his enemies, the people that had treated him bad. And Joab, unfortunately, will be one of them. That's a little foreshadowing. But in this instance, Joab is alive. He's still the captain. And he comes back in and tells David, you need to do something about this or you're going to lose your troops, which I don't think so, but okay. So he rises and he gets before the people and he sits in the gate of Mahanaim, and the people come forth, and for Israel had fled every man to his tent. Israel was demolished. Here they outnumbered David, but when David's forces killed Absalom and pushed them back, they fled to their tents. Now they're cowering. Now they're afraid of what this king is going to do. David's getting ready to return to the city of David, which is Jerusalem. Absalom is gone. He's going to be coming back, but he doesn't want to just walk back in. He wants them to make him king. I'm going to come back as a king, and I'm going to come back as your king. I'm going to come back as king of Israel. At that time, it gets the idea that Israel was afraid that David was now going to see them as enemies and come after them. So there's a lot of kissing up going on in the rest of this chapter, in a sense. And all the people were at strife throughout the tribes of Israel, saying, the king saved us out of the land of the enemies, and he saved us out of the hands of the Philistines. Now he has fled out of the land of Absalom. We anointed Absalom as king, but he's dead in battle. Therefore, why speak not a word in bringing the king back? We're the ones that anointed Absalom to be our king. We need to be the ones to bring this king back. He's going to come back in anger and vengeance, or we can bring him back in humility. So David talks to Zadok and says, why don't you talk to Judah? Judah should be here. My people should be here. My tribe, the ones I'm of, they should be the one leading the charge to bring me back. And he makes Amasa. He goes, Amasa, art thou not my bone and my flesh? God do so to me, and more so, if thou be not captain of the host before me continually in the room of Joab. He is deposing Joab here. He's putting Joab down, and he's bringing Amasa up. And Amasa bows his heart, and he bowed his heart of all of the men of Judah, even as the heart of one man. And they sent word to the king, return now, and all thy servants. So Judah is now saying, okay, come back to us. We're going to bow our hearts as one man, come back in. So remember, David is over near Gilgal on the other side of Jordan. He is across Jordan from Jerusalem, from Judah. He's over there. So he's going to start coming back. We see some people starting to get kissy-kissy here. Shimei, remember the guy throwing rocks at him? He comes back and he bows before the king. Ziba, remember the guy who comes and gives him just a few traveling goods? You know, here's some wine and here's some fruits and here's this and that. Well, you know, for 1,000 people, that'll last you a meal or two. He really didn't bring a lot of goods. Even he comes back. I think he knows that David's going to find out how he tricked Mephibosheth. We're going to find that out in a few minutes. But I think he knows. Shimei comes back, And there was 1,000 men of Benjamin with him. He brings 1,000 guys. He is sorry. I'm bringing 1,000 guys with me. And Ziba, the servant of Saul, he brings his 15 sons and 20 servants with him. And they went over the Jordan before the king. So you got these people now going over to placate David. He's the mighty king. And there went over a fair boat to carry the king's household, and to do what he thought good. And Shimei fell before him. Let not the Lord impute iniquity unto me, neither do thou remember that thy servant did perversely that day. In other words, forgive me for throwing rocks at you. That's what Shimei is basically doing here. Thy servant doth know that I have sinned. Therefore, behold, I am like the first of all the house of Joseph to go down and meet thee. I came to meet you early. I got all my people up here. I'm sorry. I mean, he's really doing the kissy face stuff here. Abishai wants to kill him. Abishai wants to stand up, but David goes, no, not right now. And I'm the king. I'll decide who lives and dies, not you. He even goes that. For do I not know that I am this day king over Israel? I am king over Israel. He's standing in his kingness now. He's back. And so he's not going to kill him. Thou shalt not die, so he's not going to kill Shimei. And then Mephibosheth comes out to meet him, and he has a conversation with Mephibosheth. He wonders, well, why didn't you go with me? When I left, why didn't you go with me? And he goes, well, I wanted to, but Ziba wouldn't let me. Ziba slandered thy servant. But my lord the king is an angel of God. Do therefore what is good unto thine eyes. For all my father's house were but dead men before the Lord my king, yet thou that hast settest thy servant among them that eat at thine table. So he saw himself as a dead dog. I'm of a dead house, and yet you took me and put me at your table. And he goes, you go ahead and split everything up with Ziba. You guys work it out, split it with him. And he goes, I don't care. All I want is to sit at your table. All I want is to be a part of the house of the king. Sometimes we Christians get lost in all the stuff that we think we can get, or we think we're owed, or we think that is our duty or our responsibility or our expectations, But just to sit at the king's table, to be invited to sit at the table, that's what Mephibosheth wanted. He says, but Mephibosheth said, yea, let him take all, insomuch as the Lord the king is come again in peace unto his own house. I mean, he can have it all. I don't care. If he wants to fight for it, he can have it. Then Bezalel comes up. Remember, he's that good guy. He and Shobi came up and gave them really cool stuff when they were out in the wilderness. Beds and pots and pans and all kinds of good foods. And they brought them lambs and different things, to feed the people with. I mean, they really took care of them in the wilderness, while Ziba brought them a little traveling food. Bezalel was 80 years old, and David wanted Bezalel to come home with him, and he's like, no, I'm 80. I can barely see. I can barely get around. I'll go with the king a little while, but I want to go and die with my people. I'm going to go be with my people. But I have this servant. His name is Shimham. Take him with you and treat him as you would me. And again, Mephibosheth and Shimham are examples of us. That God does for us what he would do for Jesus. And so Shimham, with grace, will now go and sit and be treated well because of Bezalel. And David will take care of it. And David answered Shimham, shall go with me, and I will do to him that which is good unto thee, and whatsoever thou require of me, that will I do for thee. That's the friendship relationship we need to have with Christ. That he says, anything you need, I'll do for you. Sometimes we lord it over him, or we rub it in his face, or we make sure that he remembers today that you said. It's kind of childish the way we approach it. If we approach him as an adult friend, then he says, because of what you've done for me, because of the goodness of your heart for me, anything you ask, anything you say, Bezalel. And Shimham, because of Bezalel, but he also tells us later on, I'm drawing this to Jesus, leaping forward, which sometimes I say you shouldn't do. We need to realize the mantle we're under. Sometimes we think that God's going to answer us because we want it. But if I'm under Christ and I'm thinking about what Christ would want out of the situation, that's the stuff I ask for. Unlike Mephibosheth, who could have said, I want all Ziba's stuff. I want all my household back. I want the land back and everything back that belonged to my grandfather Saul. He could have got it. But he's saying, I just want the king back. I just want the king back. Here's Barzillai. No, I don't want to go. But anything you do for me, do to Shimham. And all the people went over the Jordan, and the king came over. The king kissed Barzillai and blessed him and returned to his own place. So the king went to Gilgal, and Shimham went with him, and all the people of Judah conducted the king, and also half the people of Israel. So now Israel is coming back. Judah has come up to meet the king. Israel is coming down to meet the king and bring the king back to Jerusalem. And he's coming back as the king of Israel. Now Judah and Israel get in a fight, verbal fight, over, who should bring the king in first, and who should have done this for the king. You see them ending the chapter here. And Judah says that the king is near kin to us. Wherefore be ye angry for this matter. Have we eaten any of the king's cost, or have we given us any gift? But the men of Israel answered, we have 10 more parts of the king. I mean, they're fighting now over who gets the king, who brings the king in, who is more, the king is on our side. The king is on our side. They're fighting for David now. Neither one of them showed up to fight for David. If anything, they were all fighting against David. So now there's, like I said, there's a lot of kissy-kissy going on to try to appease the king. And it reminds me of Psalms 2, kiss the son, lest he be angry. Actually, this is a good thing to do. If you're on the other side of the king and he's coming back, you better make peace. You better come back with contrition. You better seek a little humility. When we see in Revelation, when Jesus comes back, I saw a bumper sticker that said, Jesus is coming, and boy, is he mad. That's actually the truth. That's the book of Revelation in a nutshell. He's coming back, and he's going to have wrath on his enemies. He's going to pour vengeance. He's going to remember. People are going to be like Shimei, thinking, he never got a hold of me. He let me go. No, he's going to drop the bomb. People are going to be like Joab, thinking, hey, I got away with killing Abner and doing other things, and later on he kills Amasa. And yet, David, Christ, they won't remember. He will. When David becomes Solomon, he goes through being a shepherd, being a king, and later on as Solomon, he will be the eternal king, the king of peace, the king of glory. So he's moving up this line. And he came first to be the shepherd king. Now in the church age, he's telling us, get ready, because when I come back, I'm going to be the Solomon king who takes care of the enemies of the David king. So you got to think about all of that. He's going to get these. Let's not forget that he will have vengeance on his enemies. Remember what he said to Saul of Tarsus. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? David is going to come back and get these guys. But right now, they're fighting, seeing who's going to be, who's going to lead him back into glory. Because they want to be on his side, and that's actually a good thing. If you learn anything from this chapter, get on the side of the king. It's the safest place to be. Thank you.